Hello everyone. Before this story begins, tell us what you think. Is betrayal worse when it comes from a stranger, or when it comes from the person whose dream you helped carry for half your life? Stay until the final moment, because this is not a story about a wife taking a millionaire's fortune. It is about what happens when documented truth finally catches up with a man who has confused ownership with gratitude. If stories about family, accountability, and quiet strength speak to you, subscribe to the channel and share this with someone who knows that real loyalty is built over years. Now let us return to the evening Nathan Caldwell walked into the house he had already left and discovered that Claire Bennett had stopped waiting for him. "Nathan, your attorney said you would remain at the apartment until we complete the temporary agreement." Claire's voice reached him before the front door closed. Nathan Caldwell stood in the foyer of the riverfront home outside Albany, rainwater darkening the shoulders of his coat. Olivia Grant was beside him, carrying an overnight bag. She had expected an empty house. Nathan had told her Claire would be staying with her sister. Instead, Claire stood near the dining room, 7 months pregnant, wearing a gray sweater and flat shoes. A yellow legal envelope rested on the table beside a key card for a nearby hotel. Nathan looked at the envelope. "Why is she here?" Olivia asked. Claire answered Nathan, "Not Olivia. You moved into the company apartment in March. Your counsel agreed this morning that neither of us would change the living arrangement without notice. The furnace in the apartment failed, so your assistant booked a hotel for tonight. The confirmation is there." Nathan's face tightened. "This is my home too." "Yes. No final decision has been made about the house. That is exactly why the temporary arrangement matters." Olivia dropped the overnight bag. "You said she had no claim to anything except support." Claire looked at Nathan. "Did you?" He said nothing. The house had been purchased during the marriage. Both names were on the deed. Both incomes had helped pay the mortgage, although Nathan's company now generated far more money than Claire's consulting work. Under New York law, the title alone would not settle every question, and Claire had no intention of pretending it would. She was not claiming the house by magic. She was asking that the status quo remain in place during the pregnancy, especially because Nathan had voluntarily established another residence. Her attorney had explained every word before Claire agreed to it. Nathan had not listened when his own attorney explained the same thing. He tore open the envelope. Inside was the stipulation, a schedule for collecting personal belongings, and a notice that formal financial discovery had begun. "What did you file?" he asked. "A divorce action." Olivia inhaled sharply. Nathan stared at Claire. "You said you didn't want a war." "I don't. This is how wars begin." "No," Claire replied. "Wars begin when one person believes the other has no right to prepare." For 18 years, Claire had prepared almost everything in Nathan's life. She prepared the first payroll reports for Caldwell Industrial Services. She prepared his mother's medication boxes after dementia made simple routines dangerous. She prepared meals for employees during the recession and loan packages when banks would not return Nathan's calls. She prepared their taxes, their budgets, and the room that had remained empty through 3 failed pregnancies. Nathan had mistaken preparation for obedience. Now, for the first time, it belonged to Claire. They met when Nathan was 33 and Claire was 29. He managed maintenance crews for a paper mill. She worked as a certified public accountant for a small firm that served family businesses. Nathan had broad shoulders, a quick laugh, and a talent for seeing opportunity in equipment everyone else considered obsolete. The mill announced layoffs 6 months after they began dating. Nathan responded by drafting a plan to buy used industrial cleaning machines and contract with plants that had eliminated their internal maintenance teams. He showed Claire his numbers over dinner. "You forgot insurance, payroll taxes, fuel, repairs, and the fact that clients may pay 60 days late," she said. He smiled. "So you hate it." "I hate the spreadsheet. The idea might survive." Claire rebuilt the model. Nathan found 2 former co-workers willing to join him. They rented a garage behind an auto parts store and named the business Caldwell Industrial Services. Claire incorporated it, created the accounting system, and insisted that founder ownership be written down before anyone's memory improved in their own favor. Nathan received 60% of the original common shares. Claire received 20%. The 2 employees split the rest. A shareholders' agreement required approval from holders of at least 75% of the shares for the sale of the company, issuance of major new equity, or transfer of core assets. Why make it so formal? Nathan asked. Because clarity protects people who still like each other, Claire said. He kissed her and signed. They married the following spring. The first years were brutal. Nathan worked at job sites before dawn. Claire kept her accounting clients during the day and handled company books at night. They used second-hand office furniture. Their first major customer paid 90 days late, and Claire used a premarital certificate of deposit to make payroll. This time, she documented the money as a shareholder loan, with interest and a repayment schedule. Nathan objected that marriage made the paperwork unnecessary. Marriage is why I want it clear, she replied. I never want money to become a secret resentment. Caldwell Industrial grew from 5 employees to 60. Nathan understood customers and equipment. Claire understood cash flow and controls. When a supplier overcharged the company for replacement parts, she found the pattern. When a plant manager demanded an improper cash payment, she refused and lost the contract rather than risk the company. Nathan called her his compass. Then his mother, Ruth, began getting lost on familiar streets. Claire took responsibility because she worked more flexible hours. She arranged medical appointments, interviewed home care aides, and converted a downstairs room in their house. Nathan loved his mother, but he escaped into work whenever her confusion frightened him. One night Ruth looked at Claire and asked, "When is Nathan bringing his wife?" Claire went upstairs and cried where nobody could hear. The next morning she made breakfast as usual. Years passed. Caldwell Industrial expanded into environmental remediation and equipment leasing. Outside investors purchased a minority stake. A professional board was created. Claire stepped back from daily accounting but remained a director for 6 years. When Ruth's condition worsened and fertility treatments consumed time and hope, Claire resigned from the board, retaining her shares. Nathan told everyone the decision was hers. That was true, but incomplete. He had begun treating meetings as arenas where only constant presence counted. Each time Claire missed a dinner to care for Ruth, Nathan became less likely to include her in business discussions. Each time she recovered from another failed procedure, the company advanced without her. At first she believed this was temporary. Then Nathan began appearing in regional magazines as the sole founder of Caldwell Industrial. Claire asked him to correct the biography. "The reporters simplify," he said. "You could complicate it with the truth." "I will next time." Next time never came. Olivia Grant entered the company as a strategic marketing consultant when Nathan was 51. She was 45, recently divorced, and capable of turning ordinary corporate news into a story about bold leadership. She convinced Nathan to rebrand the company as Caldwell Enterprises and promote him as the visionary behind a coming national expansion. Claire did not dislike Olivia at first. She even invited her to Ruth's memorial service after Ruth died. The memorial was where Olivia saw the photograph of Nathan and Claire standing in front of the original garage. Claire's name appeared on the incorporation papers displayed in a frame. "You were there from the beginning," Olivia said. "Yes." "Nathan never talks about that." Claire looked across the room at her husband. "Nathan has learned to tell the version people applaud." The affair began months later. Nathan told himself it was not planned. He and Olivia traveled to Boston for a client meeting, drank after the presentation, and shared the loneliness they believed nobody else understood. Afterward, he promised it would not happen again. It did. By then Claire was pregnant through an embryo transfer they had agreed to attempt before the marriage deteriorated completely. Nathan attended the first ultrasound. He held Claire's hand when the heartbeat filled the room. For several weeks, he seemed present again. Then he missed the anatomy scan for a board emergency. Claire later learned Olivia had been with him in Montreal. The discovery came without spying. Nathan had left his tablet charging in the kitchen, logged into an account both spouses used for household calendars. A notification appeared. "Olivia, once the transaction closes, the apartment can become permanent. You said Claire would take a settlement and stop interfering." Claire did not open the message thread. She wrote down the visible text and time, then called her attorney the next morning. Her attorney, Miriam Stone, advised her not to access Nathan's private accounts, guess passwords, copy protected files, or confront company employees. Evidence could be requested through proper discovery. Claire's job was to preserve what she lawfully possessed: her shareholder records, tax returns, bank statements, board materials from her service, and communications sent directly to her. Claire followed the advice. Nathan came home that evening and said, "We need to talk." They sat at the kitchen table where Ruth once folded napkins into uneven squares. "I care about you," Nathan began. Claire waited. "But we have been living separate lives for years." "Have you?" He looked down. "There is someone else," Claire said. Nathan's eyes lifted. "How do you know?" "That is the first honest question you have asked me." He admitted the relationship, but described it as a result rather than a choice. He said he had been lonely. He said Claire had become absorbed in caregiving and grief. He said they had lost each other long before Olivia. Some of it was true. That made the betrayal more painful, not less. Claire had been lonely too. She had buried pregnancies, cared for his mother, and watched her work disappear from the company's history. She had not responded by creating another life in secret. "What do you want?" she asked. "A respectful separation. You will be secure. The baby will have everything. Our daughter needs more than payments. I will be involved." Then begin by speaking about her as a person. Nathan moved into a furnished apartment owned by a company affiliate. He told Claire the move was temporary. Within weeks, Olivia had clothes in the closet and photographs on the shelves. Claire did not chase him. She met with Miriam and a corporate attorney named Luis Ortega. They reviewed the incorporation documents, shareholder agreement, loan records, tax returns, and board minutes. Luis confirmed that Claire's 20% stake was real. It did not give her control. It did, however, give her voting rights, information rights, and a necessary vote for certain extraordinary transactions. Nathan was preparing to sell the environmental remediation division to a private investment group. The sale would generate cash, but remove the most stable part of the business. It also included a proposed consulting agreement for Olivia's firm and a management bonus for Nathan. The board materials Claire received as a shareholder did not disclose the personal relationship between Nathan and Olivia. "That is a governance issue," Luis said. "Not because adultery changes share ownership. Because a decision-maker has a personal relationship with a consultant who may benefit from the transaction." Claire felt physically ill. "What do? We notify the company's independent counsel. We ask that the conflict be disclosed and the transaction reviewed by directors without Nathan's participation. We do not leak it. We do not threaten him. We use the process." Miriam separately began the divorce. Automatic financial orders restricted both parties from transferring major assets outside ordinary business or personal expenses without consent or court permission. Claire did not freeze Nathan's accounts herself. She did not move company money. She submitted a sworn net worth statement and requested temporary child-related support, health insurance protection, and continuation of household expenses. Because Nathan had voluntarily lived elsewhere for months and both lawyers wanted to reduce stress during a high-risk pregnancy, they negotiated the temporary residence stipulation. Then Nathan arrived at the house with Olivia and an overnight bag. After reading the agreement, he looked at Claire as though she had betrayed him. "You are using the baby to keep the house." "No," Claire said. "I am using an agreement your lawyer negotiated to keep tonight from becoming chaos." Olivia crossed her arms. "This is about control." Claire finally faced her. "You are standing in a family home with a married man and an overnight bag. Do not lecture me about control." Nathan flinched. It was the sharpest sentence Claire spoke all evening. She regretted its cruelty almost immediately, but she did not withdraw it. Olivia picked up her bag and walked outside. Nathan remained. "The company sale will solve everything. There will be enough cash to settle with you fairly." "Did you disclose your relationship with Olivia to the board?" His silence was different this time. "It was not shame. It was calculation. That has nothing to do with you. It has something to do with a consulting contract paid by a company I own 20% of." Nathan lowered his voice. "Do not interfere with a transaction you do not understand." Claire stepped closer to the table and placed both hands on its edge. "I prepared the first cash flow model. I made the first payroll loan. I signed the original shareholder agreement. I served on the board. I understand exactly enough to ask for an independent review." For the first time, Olivia was not the center of the conflict. The conflict was Nathan's belief that history stopped belonging to Claire when she stepped out of the boardroom. The independent directors postponed the sale. They appointed outside counsel and a financial advisor to evaluate the division, the proposed consulting arrangement, and the management bonus. Nathan was allowed to present his view, but was excluded from deliberations involving his personal conflict. He was furious. He called Claire at midnight. "You made me look dishonest." I asked you to disclose something you should have disclosed yourself. You were trying to take the company. I am trying to keep you from selling its strongest division under a cloud you created. The review found no theft and no secret criminal scheme. The proposed price, however, was below the advisor's valuation range. Olivia's consulting agreement was unusually generous, and the bonus structure rewarded Nathan for closing quickly. The committee rejected the transaction and required a new conflict of interest policy. Nathan remained chief executive, but the board appointed a lead independent director and limited his authority to approve certain contracts. Olivia's consulting engagement ended. She blamed Claire. Nathan blamed the board. For several weeks, neither blamed Nathan. The divorce moved more slowly. Business appraisers determined the value of Claire's shares and the marital interest in Nathan's holdings. Her original shareholder loan had been repaid years earlier, so it did not transform into a magical claim over the company. Her 20% ownership remained separate in part because it was issued before the marriage, although later transactions and marital efforts complicated the analysis. Nathan's shares had both separate and marital components. Experts disagreed over discounts and future earnings. Miriam explained that a court might prefer a financial award or negotiated share purchase rather than leaving hostile former spouses tied together indefinitely. Claire considered keeping her shares. What do you want them for? Miriam asked. To prove I was there. You do not need a certificate to prove that. Claire looked at the documents. I know, but I might need it to remember. The temporary support hearing was closed to the kind of spectacle Nathan feared. There were no television cameras in the courtroom. Private filings were not handed to strangers. The judge addressed household expenses, health insurance, counsel fees, and the need to preserve financial stability until trial or settlement. The judge did not punish Nathan for adultery. The court did not award Claire the company. It directed compliance with discovery and continued the temporary arrangements while the parties negotiated. Outside the courthouse, one local reporter asked Nathan about the postponed division sale. That information came from the company's own announcement, not the divorce file. The board and management are reviewing strategic alternatives, Nathan said. The answer sounded polished. Claire walked past without speaking. Her silence no longer came from weakness. It came from knowing which facts belonged in which room. The emotional turning point arrived not in court, but at a prenatal appointment. Nathan attended because the parenting stipulation encouraged both parents to participate when Claire agreed. The doctor found signs that the baby's growth had slowed. Claire needed more monitoring and less stress. In the parking garage, Nathan followed her to the car. Are you all right? No, he looked startled by the honesty. I am tired, Claire continued. I am frightened. I am negotiating the end of a marriage while explaining to lawyers that the company I helped start is not a hobby. I am carrying a child we both chose, and every conversation with you becomes an argument about control. Nathan's face changed. What can I do? Stop making me prove every fact twice. He leaned against the concrete wall. I did not know you felt erased. I told you. I thought you wanted distance from the company. I wanted time to care for your mother and survive what happened to us. I did not want my name removed from the beginning. Nathan closed his eyes. Olivia said the founder's story needed to be simple. And you liked the simple version. Yes. It was the first clean admission he had made. The baby, Lily Ruth Bennett Caldwell, was born 5 weeks early. She spent 12 days in neonatal care. Nathan came every morning before work and every evening after. He and Claire sat on opposite sides of the incubator, learning to feed a child too small to finish a bottle without resting. One night, Lily's oxygen alarm sounded. A nurse adjusted the sensor and assured them she was safe, but Nathan's hands shook for several minutes. I thought money meant I could protect people, he whispered. Claire watched Lily's chest rise. Money can buy excellent care. It cannot make us honest or present. Nathan nodded. He did not ask Claire to take him back. Perhaps some part of him finally understood that fear did not erase consequence. After Lily went home, settlement discussions became more focused. Claire proposed selling part of her shares back to the company at a neutral value while retaining 5% and a non-executive observer right for 3 years. The retained stake would give Lily a future connection to the business without forcing Claire into daily conflict. Nathan would keep management control. The company would pay over time to avoid harming employees or cash flow. The house would remain available to Claire and Lily for 4 years, with Nathan contributing to mortgage and maintenance according to the temporary and final support calculations. After that, Claire could buy Nathan's share at an appraised value or the property could be sold. Parenting time would expand as Lily grew, beginning with short visits and moving toward overnights when medically appropriate. The agreement also credited questioned marital expenditures for the apartment, travel, and gifts. Nathan did not lose property because he had an affair. He accepted an adjustment because shared money had been spent outside the marriage without agreement. The final dispute concerned public recognition. Claire wanted the company's historical materials corrected to identify all original founders. Nathan called it unnecessary. Louise placed the original incorporation certificate on the conference table. "This is not a public relations invention," he said. "It is the legal history." Nathan looked at Claire. "You want a press release?" "No. I want the company website, anniversary book, and internal records to be accurate. Quietly. Permanently." He signed. Caldwell Enterprises later published a 25th anniversary history naming Nathan Caldwell, Claire Bennett, Marcus Hill, and Frank Ruiz as the original shareholders who started the company in a rented garage. The article described Claire's role in finance and controls. It did not mention the divorce or the affair. Employees shared it because many had never known. Marcus, who had retired to Florida, called Claire. "About time," he said. She laughed for the first time in weeks. It only took 25 years. Nathan and Olivia ended their relationship before the divorce was final. The board review had cost her the consulting work, but Claire was not the only reason they failed. Without secrecy and fantasy, Olivia saw Nathan's anger, guilt, and need to be admired. Nathan saw that Olivia had been a refuge from hard conversations, not a foundation for a new family. During their final dinner, Olivia said, "You told me Claire had stopped caring." Nathan looked at the untouched food between them. "She stopped carrying everything. I mistook the difference." Olivia left with dignity. She did not beg or threaten. She later joined a nonprofit and disclosed the relationship when asked during hiring. She accepted responsibility for her choices without becoming the villain responsible for Nathan's. Nathan began counseling. He spoke about his mother's illness, the pregnancies he and Claire lost, and the shame he felt each time he entered the room where Ruth no longer recognized him. Work had offered measurable problems. Claire's grief had asked him to remain present when nothing could be fixed. He had run. The affair was another form of running. Claire also entered therapy, not because Nathan's betrayal made her broken, but because strength had become a role she no longer wanted to perform every hour. She learned that caregiving had trained her to anticipate everyone's needs while ignoring her own. She learned to ask for help before exhaustion became resentment. With proceeds from the partial share sale, she opened Bennett Family Business Advisors. The firm specialized in helping spouses, siblings, and aging parents document ownership, succession plans, compensation, and decision-making before conflict turned family history into litigation. Her first clients were a 68-year-old baker and his wife, who had managed the books for 40 years without a salary or ownership record. Claire helped them establish a fair structure and a retirement plan. "Are you a divorce lawyer?" the baker asked. "No," Claire said. "I help people have the conversations they postpone until they need one." The work grew. Nathan's leadership changed more slowly. At company meetings, he began naming the managers responsible for successful projects. He stopped presenting every victory as proof of his personal genius. When the board selected a new chief financial officer, Nathan supported a woman who had challenged his forecasts during the failed sale. Some employees believed the change was calculated. Perhaps at first it was. Then habits became character. 2 years after the divorce, Caldwell Enterprises held its 25th anniversary gathering in the original garage, now renovated as a training center. Claire attended with Lily. Nathan stood before employees, retirees, and their families. He did not tell the private story. He pointed to 4 framed documents on the wall: the incorporation certificate, the first customer invoice, the first payroll ledger, and Claire's original cash flow model. "This company survived because different people saw different dangers," he said. "I was good at moving forward. Claire Bennett was good at making sure the ground could carry us. Marcus Hill and Frank Ruiz knew the work better than either of us. For too many years, I accepted credit that belonged to a team." The room was quiet. Nathan looked toward Claire. "Accuracy should not require courage, but sometimes it does. I am sorry it took me so long." Claire nodded once. She did not cry until later, alone in her car. The tears were not a request to return. They were grief for the younger woman who had waited to hear those words and joy that Lily would grow up hearing a truer story. When Lily was 4, she asked why her parents lived in different houses. Claire chose language a child could carry. "Your father and I were not good at being married anymore," she said. "But we are learning to be good at being your parents." "Did Daddy do something bad?" "He made choices that hurt our family. I made choices too, like staying silent when I needed to speak." Grown-ups are responsible for fixing what they can and learning from what they cannot fix. Lily considered this. "Do you still like him?" Claire smiled. "Sometimes. And sometimes he makes me tired." Lily laughed. Nathan kept the hotel key card from the rainy evening in a drawer. Years later, he showed it to Lily, who was old enough to understand more. "I thought your mother was throwing me out," he said. "But I had already moved out." The key reminded me that agreements matter, even when powerful people do not read them. "Were you powerful?" "I thought I was." "What are you now?" Nathan looked toward Claire, who was speaking with guests across the room at Lily's high school graduation. "More careful." Claire eventually sold her remaining 5% stake under a formula in the divorce settlement. The sale did not feel like surrender. By then, the company history was accurate, Lily's education trust was funded, and Claire's advisory firm had become her own legacy. She used part of the proceeds to create the Ruth Caldwell Caregiver Grant, supporting people over 50 who had left paid work to care for family members. Nathan contributed an equal amount. At the first grant ceremony, an audience member asked Claire whether she had forgiven him. Claire answered carefully, "Forgiveness is not one door that opens and stays open. Some days it means I can remember without becoming angry. Some days it means I maintain a boundary without wishing him harm. What matters is that forgiveness is no longer confused with permission." Nathan heard the answer from the back row. After the event, he approached her. "I am glad you used my mother's name. She loved you, even when she could not remember your name." He looked down. "You carried that alone." "Yes. I am sorry. I know." There was no dramatic embrace. No music. No reunion that erased 18 years of love and the choices that ended it. There was something quieter. Two adults standing in a hallway, finally able to tell the truth without using it as a weapon. The most difficult conversation in the settlement was not about stock or the house. It concerned the embryo records and the decisions Claire and Nathan had made before Lily's birth. They had no remaining embryos, but the clinic documents forced them to remember how deliberately they had once chosen to become parents together. Miriam placed the medical consent forms in a separate folder. "These are not bargaining material," she told both sides. "They are part of the family history. Treat them accordingly." Nathan read his own signature from years earlier and became quiet. After the conference, he asked Claire to wait in the hallway. "I was happy when we decided to try again," he said. "I need you to know that. I know you were. Then I became afraid. I thought I was too old. I thought another child would expose how little control I had over anything. Olivia made me feel as though I could begin again without carrying the grief." Claire's voice remained steady. "Beginning again is not the same as abandoning the people who remember the beginning. No, you could have told me you were afraid. I did not know how. You knew how to negotiate with banks, unions, and investors. None of them knew the parts of me I was ashamed of." Claire looked through the courthouse window at people crossing the plaza below. That was supposed to be the privilege of marriage, Nathan, not a reason to lie inside it. The conversation did not change the settlement, but it changed the tone of the remaining negotiations. Nathan stopped sending aggressive messages through counsel. Claire stopped assuming every proposal concealed a trap. Their lawyers still checked every number. Trust had not returned, and professionalism was not trust. But conflict became manageable once neither person expected the process to repair the marriage. Miriam later told Claire, "A fair agreement is not proof that the relationship was fair. It is simply a way to prevent yesterday's harm from controlling tomorrow." Claire remembered that sentence when she signed. She also remembered it years later when a client arrived at Bennett Family Business Advisors carrying 40 years of handwritten ledgers. The client, a woman named Dolores, had kept the records for her husband's landscaping company, but owned nothing on paper. Her husband was not unfaithful. He was ill, frightened, and convinced that discussing succession meant inviting death. Claire brought both spouses into the same room. "Documentation is not an accusation," she told them. It is a promise that memory will not be asked to do the work of law. Dolores received formal ownership, salary credit, and a retirement plan. Her husband created a management transition for their son. They left holding hands. That evening, Claire sent Nathan a message, helped another family avoid becoming us. His response arrived a minute later. Then something good came from what we learned. Claire read it twice, then put the phone down without sadness. The past had not become beautiful. It had become useful. That was how Claire's victory looked. Nathan did not lose every dollar. Caldwell Enterprises did not collapse. Olivia did not vanish into disgrace. A judge did not award a pregnant wife a corporation because the husband had been unfaithful. Before leaving the office that night, Claire opened the original shareholder ledger. Her name appeared on the first page in blue ink, exactly where she had written it decades earlier. She no longer needed the book to persuade Nathan, the board, or the public. Still, she made a digital copy and donated the original to the company archive beside photographs of the garage crew. On the archive label, she wrote one sentence: "Businesses are built by the people whose names appear in the records and by many others whose names should have appeared sooner." Lily later chose that sentence for a school essay about family history. She did not write that her mother defeated her father. She wrote that both parents learned the difference between remembering a story and recording it accurately. Claire considered that the inheritance she most wanted to give. Reality demanded more patience. Claire's documented shares were valued. Her premarital and marital interests were traced. The company remained intact through a structured purchase. Questioned spending was accounted for. The home was handled through agreement, appraisal, and time. Private family records remained private. Public business decisions were explained through proper corporate channels. The law provided tools, not miracles. Claire provided the courage to use them. And Nathan's deepest consequence was not financial. It was learning that the woman he had described as interfering had been protecting the business, his mother, their home, and the truth of who built the first foundation. When she stopped doing that work invisibly, he did not become powerless. He became accountable. Years later, Claire stood outside the old garage after another anniversary event. Nathan joined her. Both had gray in their hair now. Lily was inside interviewing retired employees for a school history project. "She asks more questions than you," Nathan said. "She listens better than you did." He smiled. "That is fair." Through the open door, they heard Lily ask Marcus Hill, "Who really started the company?" Marcus answered, "All of us." "That is the only correct answer." Claire looked at Nathan. He did not look away. For most of their marriage, she believed recognition from him would restore what had been lost. In the end, recognition mattered, but it did not restore the marriage. It restored the record. Her life was restored another way, through boundaries, useful work, motherhood, and the decision to stop confusing endless sacrifice with love. Nathan Caldwell spent years chasing a simpler story in which he was the hero and everyone else played a supporting role. Claire Bennett gave him a harder story, one in which success was shared, damage had consequences, and becoming better did not guarantee getting back what he had broken. That story was less flattering. It was also true. And sometimes the truth does not destroy an empire. Sometimes it does something far more important. It teaches the people inside it how to stop living a lie.